There is nothing over which a free man ponders less than death. His wisdom is to meditate not on death, but on life. What is life is an age-old question. It is and was philosophers and other human scientists who debated in the past, but has been at the core subject in the natural science area of knowledge as well. The current biological definition of life usually follows along the lines of life requires a cell with genetic material and the ability to reproduce, metabolize, and evolve through natural selection. It also usually includes the requirement of a carbon-based response to stimulus and the ability to grow. At the moment, though, this definition, and others like it, is a subject of controversy. Natural scientists cannot pinpoint an exact definition of life that doesn't exhibit problems. For some fields, such as biology, knowing what life is crucial. The etymology of biology is from the Greek bios, meaning life, and logia, meaning a speaking, discourse, treatise, doctrine, theory, or science. So biology can be translated into the study of life. When the entire field is dedicated to something, it's important to know what the range of study includes. So if a field is dedicated to the study of life, it's important to know what life is so you know the range of what the study is. But there is no clean-cut definition, and having one could be important as we forge ahead in this developing time. The definition of life would have an impact on several major areas of discussion, primarily on the creation of life from scratch, the discovery of life in space, the ethics of abortion and stem cell research. This presentation will discuss the idea of a definition itself, the drawbacks of the widely accepted Darwinian definition of chemical life, its implications in the aforementioned controversies, and why we cannot have a clear definition of life with our present span of knowledge. The Darwinian definition of life is a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution. Darwinian evolution requires the reproduction in response to stimulus, as previously mentioned. There are several ways to poke holes in this definition. Reproduction, for example, causes problems. Some cells in organisms may never reproduce. Does this mean they aren't alive? Organisms that are not asexual also require another organism to reproduce. Does this mean that one organism alone is dead and together two are alive? So one human male or female is dead, but a male and female together are alive. The process of Darwinian evolution is also not a good measure of defining life because it could take millions of years for this evolution to happen. Darwinian evolution is the idea of evolution through natural selection, where organisms with beneficial mutations or adaptations have a higher chance of survival, and thus live long enough to pass on their adaptation to future generations, while organisms with characteristics that are detrimental in that environment are less likely to survive to produce offspring, so their detrimental trait is not passed on. This idea of Darwinian evolution could be problematic when trying to identify a new entity as alive or dead. How long upon identifying it would we have to wait for it to fit this definition? Another problem with this current view of life is the usual covenant that carbon is the basis of life. That may be so on Earth, but life may exist in an entirely new chemical format, somewhere else in the universe. It may use hydrogen or another element as a base. If we overlook those because they exist differently to those on Earth, we've lost major opportunities. That said, if we include other bases, would we include things like silicon? Could machines potentially be considered alive? Already we've started on the path to developing lifelike robots with rudimentary intelligence, response to stimulus, and chemical processes. This definition also includes all types of cells, which has implications for the debates over abortion and stem cell research. This definition does support the idea that the developing cell is alive, which would support the pro-life idea that abortion is the destruction of a life. However, this definition applies to all types of cells and makes them all equal, which means that when you cut yourself or scrape off skin, you're killing more than just a single cell. It also means that killing an animal or a plant is equivalent to killing a human cell if you look at it at what the very basis of a cell is, a collection of membrane and mitochondria and organs if it's a eukaryote. Both sides have an argument due to the definition, so it's still up to continued ethics to set boundaries, such as the idea of soul or greater presence in human beings. But that's an entirely different issue. The other ethical issue related to defining life is whether we can create life from a mass of chemicals. This has been dubbed unethical because we are playing God. But if we have life defined in a purely biological sense, such that we can create it using a couple mass of chemicals at the right environment and temperature and situation, which we could possibly obtain in the next decade, does this mean life isn't more than a collection of molecules and chemicals? What does this mean about the idea of a soul? What does that mean to the use of abortion or stem cell research? The problem with defining life is the idea of a definition itself. A definition is an explanation of a term that specifies the necessary and specific conditions for the term to be applied. A paper by Carol E. Cleland and Christopher F. Chiba from the Department of Philosophy and the Center of Astrology at the University of Colorado Boulder, as well as the Center for the Study of Life in the Universe, used the example of defining a bachelor. A bachelor is classified as an unmarried human male. This definition could also include a toddler child, so instead we may see it actually as an unmarried adult human male. But now how do we define an adult? Are you one day a teenager and the next fully mature? Definitions all come with a level of obscurity that isn't usually an issue because definitions clarify the terms that we already have a concept of. They work well for human creations and applications, like homework or desk, but they often fail when it comes to defining natural phenomena. An example of this is defining a natural type, such as water. We used to define water using other words. It's wet, thirst-quenching, liquid, clear. We would try to define it with its properties, but that isn't what it is, it's what it's like. The discovery of the molecular definition of water as H2O was necessary to dispel that obscurity. Water is H2O no matter what the form. Using water as defined as H2O was necessary to apply chemical properties to everyday contexts that can explain differences between bodies of water and states of water. Natural things like water can completely satisfy the properties of things that are normally used to recognize a natural kind, and yet still fail to qualify as a thing of that kind. The dolphin may share many of the same characteristics with a shark. They both swim, they share the same habitat, and often the same food source, but a dolphin is still not a shark. In the same way that water couldn't be defined without the molecular theory, and a dolphin couldn't be separated from a shark without the proper theoretical understanding, life cannot be defined as of yet. We haven't yet reached the level of understanding necessary for defining it. We can only hope to keep it as an open idea until we pass that point of enlightenment. That's the end. Thank you for listening.